I think he means he marked the young couple for death, sir.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Movie Review. This time we are looking at I Bury the Living. This movie was made in 1958 and runs about an hour and 17 minutes, starring Richard Boone, Theodore Bikel, Peggy Maurer, Howard Smith, Herbert Anderson, and Robert Osterloh. There are some other people in the film, obviously, but those are the big names. All of these people in this film seem to have had a lot of experience as bit players in movies and a lot of TV appearances. Richard Boone is almost certainly best known for playing Paladin in the 1957 to 1963 series Have Gun Will Travel. Animation fans will also remember him from the 1977 TV movie of The Hobbit, where he did the voice of Smaug. Theodore Bikel didn't have as noticeable roles. He mostly was in supporting cast roles in a ton of TV series. He has a lot of credits. And Howard Smith is probably best recognized for his 1954 to 55 series First Love, which was a soap opera, and he was in 388 episodes of that, as well as doing a ton of other minor roles and bit parts. Herbert Anderson is another recognizable face from the late 50s, early 60s for his role as the father of Dennis the Menace, Henry Mitchell, in the 1959 to 63 series. So this movie starts out with a guy named Robert Kraft being named chairman of a local cemetery known as Immortal Hills. He's being shown around by the caretaker Andy, who is sort of the catch-all employee. He does a lot of custodial work, carves gravestones, that sort of thing, and he's set to retire. The committee has decided that it's about time for him to retire after 40 years of service, and he's going to get full pension as soon as he finds a replacement. So while he's showing Robert around, we get this big map on the wall that is color-coded with white and black pins. The white pins show that a plot has been purchased and is reserved, and a black pin shows that the plot is occupied. Now, Robert doesn't actually want to do this job. He thinks it's a waste of time. He's president of a department store that's pretty successful, and it requires a lot of his attention. Even though this is only a few hours of work a week, he has to go in and sign checks and do a little bit of housekeeping work like that for the business side. And it's something that has been done traditionally in the family and by other committee members. It's sort of an honorarium. Whether you want to do it or not, you do it for a year and then it rotates to someone else. Well, it's Robert's turn and he's trying to weasel out of it and it doesn't really work. It's sort of family tradition. His Uncle George had to do it and he sort of pressures Robert into doing the job. Well, Robert's being shown sort of the job duties. He ends up running into a couple that just got married, the Drexels, and he accidentally puts the wrong pins on the map and puts the black pins in. And then they mysteriously die in an automobile accident. And while dealing with all of this, somebody makes the offhanded remark that he marked them for death. Ooh, mysterious. Or is it? Now, Robert's girlfriend shows up and we meet her. She says she had a premonition about seeing him and that he wanted her to go to meet him for lunch. And that's all very weird, but slightly foreshadowing. And after he chats with her, he sticks a black pin in somebody named W. Isham's plot. Now, Isham drops dead of seemingly a heart attack, and this is the first on-screen death. And it's also the only one you're really gonna see, and you don't even get a really good look at it. You just see his hand tense up. And it's with this death that Robert starts to kind of correlate the changing of the pins with these people dying. And he catches on really quick. I mean, this is only the third death, and second incident, technically. And Andy, who's got this really mediocre Scottish accent, seems to kind of understand what he's saying and tells him that he hadn't changed the pins. It was, in fact, Robert who did it. So yeah, he's starting to go along with this theory and that something weird's going on. Well, he talks to his friend Jess about the problem. Jess is played by Herbert Anderson, who does a really good job playing kind of the creepy, weird friend. And Jess tries to talk some sense into him. Robert explains to him that he's having this sort of weird deja vu, and even the sound of names being chiseled on the headstones is somehow familiar to him, as if he's been in this place before. And that strikes kind of an odd chord this early in the movie, but it kind of makes sense from the storytelling perspective that there is definitely something weird going on here. He also tells his Uncle George what's going on and his weird theories about it. And George tells him to put a pin in his friend Henry's grave plot. Then Henry dies that night, mysteriously, suddenly. He's just not breathing anymore. So what would Robert do? Well, he could keep killing people, or he could follow his conscience and try and explain what's going on to somebody. And he does that by calling the police on himself. Police lieutenant shows up and is like, look man, these deaths are not connected in any way. They are heart attack, an embolism, a car accident. You have nothing to do with these things. Stop being weird and take a vacation. And then the committee to the cemetery gets convened, and they're all people that work together anyway, so they decide to have this genius idea where Robert's gonna put a black pin in each of their graves so that they can test this theory. Well, that does no good if Robert's the only one left because he killed all the others. And well, it works out about as well as you'd expect. It's kind of a dumb idea, really. The weird thing is that Robert actually follows this plan through because I guess he had nothing better to do that night? I don't know. Well, after that mess up, they come up with an idea to try and do this pin technique on somebody that's in another country who's perfectly healthy. And he does that. And yeah, the plans just get worse and worse. We do get a twist ending, which is extra twisty because it has a second twist on top of that twist, which leave you with some real seriously weird questions. Now, the movie is pretty interesting just based on the plot. And I like to think that this movie is actually the precursor movie, the prequel to Night of the Living Dead, because it definitely could be. And I say that because he tries reversing the pins at one point. But the twist ending is really pretty interesting because you see over the course of the movie how the impact of these deaths really weighs on Robert. And Richard Boone does a really good job of showing this man having a breakdown and really succumbing to the psychological pressure of maybe causing the deaths of several of his friends and even a family member. So I thought it was actually some really good acting in here. It is not a fast-moving movie, and most of the deaths are off-screen. And there are 7 deaths in this one, so it has a high body count, but you don't actually see the majority of the deaths. And that kind of works for this film because of the twists at the end of the film and what the explanation is for them. But fascinatingly, the map of the cemetery is almost a character in this movie. As Robert is going through his psychological drama in the cabin at the cemetery, they really do play up the fact that the map seems to change size and become illuminated, and it's a reflection either of his psychosis or the power that's going on behind the scenes, the supernatural element. So I thought that was really well done. Plus there's this thing where the heater doesn't want to work, and he complains about being cold every time he's at the cemetery, and he can't get the heat to work right. He's just always cold, and that does seem to relate to what's going on. So I really thought this movie was a lot of fun. It has sort of a Twilight Zone feel, and coming in at an hour and 15 minutes actually works for the film because it's not long and drawn out, and it's fast-paced enough where the interesting stuff is not bogged down too much by a bunch of boring bits. It's not a fast-paced movie, but it is very psychological. So don't expect a slasher film or an intense, scary horror film. It's more of a psychological drama. And although it has some definite horror elements and supernatural themes, it all does work together really well for this film. So I have to actually recommend this. I didn't think I was going to like this because I thought the title was a little bit kooky and maybe not real good, but it works for the film. It got me to watch it, and I thought it was a lot of fun. So I'm absolutely going to recommend this one. I don't think it's a scary movie, but it definitely will make you think and question what the ending result really is and what's really behind it. So a fun film that had the feel of like a Twilight Zone or Outer Limits episode. It is a bit dated because it's from the 50s, but I thought it was really fun. And this one is old enough that it's on a lot of streaming services. You could probably find it on DVD really easily. It's usually in the multi-packs if you're a physical media person like myself. itself, and I would say absolutely give it a chance. But that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the like button, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you'd like to help the channel out in other ways, links are in the description to various support methods, and as always, we hope to see you on the next one.